The Lombards also worshipped Wodan, or Godan, after whom the fourth day of the week was called Wednesday. It is said that this word Godan, becoming afterwards contracted into God. God, the term given to the mighty, omnipotent deity of the Christian faith. It is also a classification of entities that might have supernatural influence over the world. In English, God can be masculine or plural neutral. I had never really thought about the origins of this word before, God, despite being enamored with other terms for God in other languages like the Greek's theos, Latin's noumen and deus, Old Germanic ansus, or the Old Norse as, plural asir. And I've talked plenty about the Asir and Odin on this channel in other videos, and this video is really no different. And it was when I was reading scholar Stephen Paulington's The Elder Gods of Early England, I saw this little brief mention that the pre-Christian Lombards, northern Italian peoples, called Odin, they referred to Odin as Godan. So in Old Norse, this entity, Odin, is referred to as Odin in Old Norse, but his Old Proto-Germanic name is Wotanaz, or in Old English, he would have been called Wodan. And so we have these Lombardic people who are of this same culture, this pan-Germanic deity, and they have this particular variation of the name, and therefore it's called Godan. It's like you swap the W for a G. So you can see right here that the first three letters of Godan should be obvious enough to where I'm going to be taking this, which is to wonder if there's any connection between the word God and this version of Odin's name. Suffice to say, it's not so clear-cut where God actually comes from, and I have way too much information to cover that rabbit hole alone, but this is how I essentially started this hunt, is wondering, is Godan related to the word God? So, let's start. Oh my Godan. So no, there doesn't appear to be a good reason to think that God is a contracted version of Godan, despite what some YouTubers or even some book sources might claim. See, for example. So here's a book from the 1700s, A New System of Geography, or A General Description of the World. It is said that this word Godan, becoming afterwards contracted into God, the Germans and English gave the name to the deity. They also worshipped the gods Fairness, the fame with the Danish Thor, and the Thunderer, from whom our Thursday has its name. The goddess Freya, or Venus, gave her name to Friday, and basically Tiwaz, I don't know, Twisco. The fame with Mars gave the name of Tuesday. So I even found a bunch of different YouTubers also exploring the origins of this word God, because it is a Germanic word, so it's not a Hebrew word where they would use Elohim, or a Greek word where they would have used Theos. So it's got a completely different etymology or origin than these other words, essentially, right? And I even found this other YouTuber, Seven Bomar, and he's like a Christian mystic or something. Shout out to him, I guess. But yeah, he was on this, premise that that this is a contracted version, or that these W's and G's are get just kind of changed, but they're all related in a sense or whatever. And that Godan, or God, is specifically a contracted form of Godan. So yeah, he will relate Wode, or this idea of frenzy, which is part of the Proto-Germanic version of Odin's name, Wodanaz, and he'll say Wode and God are connected etymologically speaking, or I guess, or philologically. I don't really know how. He doesn't have any sources really, but yeah, this, even if I'm partial to maybe figuring out if Odin's in here somewhere, this is not really sound, essentially, in its argumentation, despite some fun coincidences in regards to their transliterations that we're about to go over. For the uninitiated, the Pan-Germanic god, or Ansus if you want to get Proto-Germanic about it, Odin, was known as Wodanaz to the Germans, Woden to the English, his name essentially rendering as Lord of the Frenzied. Old Norse, as a rule, typically loses the W from their Germanic counterparts. For example, in English we have wolf, worm, and Woden, and in Old Norse drop the W's and it becomes Ulf, Orm, and Odin, okay? And one of these little grammatic mutations can be found in the Lombard language as mentioned at the top of the article. The Lombards are possibly Scandinavian origin Germanic tribe who invaded the northern parts of Italy during the Roman times, which is still a province that bears their namesake today. In the Lombardic language, the W was replaced with a G, The velar G shifting to semi-vowel W before a back vowel is a common phonological shift in this dialect. Hence, Wodan becoming Godan, also found in words like ward and guard, and the Germanic name Wilhelm or William being spelt Williamus or William. I confirmed all this via email with Dr. Scott T. Schell of the Germanic Beliefs and Religion YouTube channel. Definitely checking him out. He's got tons of information on Proto-Germanic and Gothic, which we'll be going on into in further video essays. So therefore, we're probably safe to say that God did not derive from Godan. Case closed, just an easily explained phonological shift. Mostly. I used two examples of a phonological shift using the Pan-Germanic deity Wotan or Odin, the dropping of the W's or the swapping of for G's, but Odin is already lurking around in other parts of this video essay that you might not be aware of. The Lombards, the anglicized version, or Italian Lombardi, or Germanic Longobards, mentioned at the top once again, means longbeards. The name Lombards, longbeards, themselves, from their own history, obtained this name from Odin or Wotan himself. Odin named these people longbeards. Paul the Deacon's Historia Longobardum and Origio Gentis Longobardum connect Godan, Wodan, Odin to the founding of the tribe. The story goes that the people known as the Wenilis, or essentially the winners, refugees from their homeland, encountered the Vandals, whom they proceed to quarrel with. The Vandals plead to Godan for help, who replied that he would give victory to those he first saw at sunrise. Gambara, a female leader of the Wenilis, asked Freya for assistance. They were told to have their women tie their long hair under their chins to appear as beards, and assemble in view of Godan's window for the next morning. When the sun rose, Godan looks out and asks in surprise, "Who are these Longbeards?" To whom Freya reminds him he should give victory to whom he had just named. Henceforth, the Wenilis became the Longbeards, aka Lombards, Longobards, Longo, you get it. Paul says, quote, "It is certain that the Longobards, who were later named this due to their length of their beards untouched by iron. I've seen it attested elsewhere that Longbartr, aka Longbeard, is one of Odin's names in some of Snorri's Prose Edda and the Odin's names section. But Odin also has plenty of beard combo names like Sithkegger, Longbeard, and Harbarthr, hoary or graybeard."
Broad hat, broad beard, victory father. All father, father of the slain, Atrid and burden god. By one name I have never been known, since I went among the people.
So Odin gets around with names like Zeus does with mortals. It is also in this tale that Paul claims that Wotan was worshipped as a god among all peoples of Germania, though defining Germania here might also be a risky task. So finally, case closed. But wait, we forgot about God. Where does that word come from exactly, if it's not from Godan? I'm going to save that for part 2, where we explore all the etymological rabbit holes I've found for this word God, and how it still has some potential Odinic traces lurking around in its family tree. And we'll see just how far this rabbit hole goes. They called me God among the gods.